$100,000 a year sounds like a lot of money, and in a lot of cities, it still is. But if you're trying to buy in Ottawa right now, you may have done some of the math on this, and it might not have added up to exactly what you thought. So today, I want to walk through exactly what that income gets you in Ottawa, what exactly you'll qualify for, what the monthly payments might look like, and where in Ottawa that number takes you, and where it doesn't. Because there's a version of this that ends in a solid home and a comfortable payment, and a version that ends in regret. And the difference between those two can usually come down to a few key decisions that many people don't think about before they're like halfway through the process. Now, before we get into the numbers themselves, I think it's important to say that this does not qualify as financial advice. The numbers we're going to go through today are not going to be specific to your situation. It's just to give you an overview of what most lenders look at, or the kind of things that most lenders look at, so you have an idea of where you stand. If you want information on your specific situation, go talk to your bank or mortgage broker, and they will be able to take everything into consideration and give you the most accurate number. That being said, let's get into the numbers here. So this is a quick mortgage qualification spreadsheet that I put together with the help of ChatGPT. So we're going to start with the annual gross income, $100,000. That's what we're looking at. The gross monthly income, $100,000 divided by 12, gets us to around $8,333. And that gross monthly income number is very important for how lenders qualify what they can lend you. The contract rate, we're going with 3.75, which is around what you can get for a 5-year fixed in Ottawa these days. Depending on when you're watching this video, this could potentially change, but this is around where we are right now. And of course, we have the stress test. So add 2% onto that contract rate of 3.75, and you're going to be qualified for your lender at 5.75%. So according to OSFI, you basically have to either qualify at the contract rate plus 2% or 5.25%, whichever of those two is higher, which in this case is the 5.75. Now, the reason that gross monthly income number is important is because of something called the GDS ratio, which is something that most lenders use to get an idea of how much of your monthly income is going to be going towards your housing costs directly. Now, as a general rule, most lenders use around 32% as the benchmark. But again, this is general information and can vary across lenders. Some will use slightly different TDS ratios and GDS ratios. So if we use 32%, the maximum you can spend on your housing cost is around $2,667 per month. So if we factor in property tax, which let's say is $350 per month, an estimated heating cost of $100 per month, you land at a max monthly mortgage payment of around $2,217. Now, I do want to mention, if you're buying something that has a condominium fee, you don't have to include the entire condominium fee in here, but normally lenders will include 50% of it. So if you're trying to qualify for a place that has a $500 per month condo fee, you're going to have to add $250 somewhere in here. So this max monthly mortgage payment amount will actually go down to make room for that condominium fee. The good news is if the building has a condo fee, you're probably not going to have to pay as much for it in terms of price and therefore mortgage payment. Now, if we take that into a 30-year amortization, so it says max 25 years here. ChatGPT actually got that wrong. For first-time homebuyers and people buying new builds, you can actually use a 30-year amortization and still do the minimum 5% down payment. So the max mortgage that you're going to be able to qualify for at a 30-year amortization is $379,844,000, and that's assuming a down payment of around $20,000. Now, if the down payment goes up, you're going to have to rely less on the mortgage. So if we up this to $30,000, for example, you'll see you can actually qualify for a higher purchase price. So we're assuming a minimum down payment here, but if you have more down payment, you can spend a little bit more as far as max purchase price goes. It's really the mortgage amount and the mortgage payment that your GDS is limiting. So that's the result. Your max mortgage. So that's the result. Your maximum mortgage with the stress test will be around $380,000. The max purchase price would be around $400K, assuming that $20,000 down payment. And your max monthly payment is going to be around $2,217. And these two here will stay consistent. The max purchase price will fluctuate with your down payment. So now that we have an idea of what you'll kind of be able to qualify for, ballpark, the next obvious question is what kind of property can that actually get you in Ottawa? Unfortunately, if you're looking under the $400,000 range, so unless you have a larger down payment, you're probably going to be relegated to the condo sort of property. That's not to say you won't be able to find something that won't be in a condominium building. There are lots of nice condo townhouses out there. Just bear in mind, if you do buy a condo townhouse, you will have to factor that condo fee, 50% of that condo fee usually, into those calculations we just did. If you go a little bit further outside of Ottawa, think places like Carp or Almont or Carleton Place or kind of anywhere in between there, you may be able to find some freehold properties that are cheaper and smaller and possibly in need of a little bit of work that you may be able to pick up closer to that $400,000 range. But chances are, even if you go outside of town, it's probably going to be something that you have to put a fair amount of work into, which isn't always the most suitable option for first-time home buyers, as you're usually looking for kind of a safe investment when you're buying your first place. If you're looking more inside the city, even in the suburbs like Canada, Barrhaven, or Orleans, you're likely going to end up with a condo townhouse or condo stacked unit as something that fits within that price range. And unfortunately, if you were dreaming of a detached property somewhere within a reasonable drive of downtown or within the city, that pre-approval is just not going to cut it. The average detached property in all of Ottawa right now is around $700,000. So if that's something you're shooting for, you'll either have to save for quite a bit longer, borrow some money from parents, or get some other people co-signing and contributing their income to your pre-approval. And realistically, in those circumstances, it can often make more sense to get something at a more entry-level price point, live in it for a few years while you continue to save more down payment and hopefully gain some equity in that first property, and then eventually step up to the higher types of properties, the detached, that sort of thing. That is what most people do. It's no longer true that real estate goes nowhere but up in Ottawa. We've definitely seen price fluctuations over the last while, but if you're going to stay there for at least 5 years or so, with the amount that you're paying down, you will likely end up ahead of where you are starting. Now, there are a few little traps to watch out for as well, especially if you're a first-time buyer that can trip you up when you're doing your qualification math. And this is all stuff that mortgage brokers will generally tell you in the appointment, but it's good to have an idea of what to look out for before you start. The first is that qualifying for a $400,000 mortgage and actually paying the $400,000 mortgage every month are not exactly the same things. Just because you can qualify for it doesn't mean that's what you should pay. It can often make sense to buy something lower in your qualification range in order to maintain the lifestyle that you're hoping to. You don't want to end up house poor and spending all of your monthly income or most of your monthly income just on floating a property and not being able to go out and do the things that are important to you. The other one to note is that if you're only doing a 5% down payment, really anything under a 20% down payment, you're also going to have to pay CMHC insurance. Now, I'll put a quick calculator for this in the description of the video, but basically, if you're doing anything under 20%, there's going to be a lump sum that's added onto your mortgage amount, so you don't have to pay it out of pocket, but it is going to be added onto your mortgage. So if you have a $400,000 mortgage, you're probably going to land somewhere between $14,000 to $16,000 of CMHC mortgage insurance that you need to tack on to your initial mortgage amount. So keep that in mind if you have a lower down payment. And as we mentioned in the spreadsheet, it's also important to keep in mind that you're going to have to pay property taxes, heat, utilities, internet, all of that stuff. Put yourself together a spreadsheet and make sure that the numbers make sense and you're not going to be super strapped as soon as you get into your new place. I'm definitely not saying don't do it. I'm a big believer. I'm a realtor, so it's kind of biased, but I'm a big believer that having a home, paying a mortgage every month and paying that asset down and gaining equity is a better idea long-term than just paying rent over and over, paying somebody else's mortgage or paying a big company. But with that being said, it doesn't make sense in all situations, so make sure you know in advance what you're getting into and what that's going to look like. So for next steps, here's what I'd do if I were making $100,000 and I was serious about buying in Ottawa. The first thing I would do is get off YouTube and go and talk to a bank or a mortgage broker to get an accurate idea of what your situation will actually allow you to buy. The chances are your down payment's going to be different. You may have some debts that are not being taken into consideration in the spreadsheet here. Get an accurate picture of your financial situation and what you can afford and what payment makes sense for you. Secondly, don't max out necessarily on your qualification. I would say get pre-approved for as much as you can, but do not feel pressured to spend at the very top of your pre-approval. You got to make sure those monthly payments work. The third thing I would consider is there is a window of opportunity right now for purchasing, especially if you're looking at the condo section of the market. Inventory is up a lot compared to the lows that we saw in 2021 and 2022. Prices have come down considerably, and they're honestly probably still coming down, at least for the apartment condo style of units. There's more negotiating room than there was, and you don't need to panic buy. You can do your checks of the status certificate, you can do your inspections, and you can take your time to make sure that this place is going to work for you. It doesn't mean prices are collapsing. They're not, but the frantic 20 offer situations are much less common right now, even in the freehold market. If you're competing with anybody, it's going to be like 1 to 3 other offers most of the time. Now, if you feel like there's any other information you feel like you need, if you're at $100,000 and trying to figure out what's going to work for your specific situation, feel free to reach out. I'd be happy to connect you with a good mortgage broker and give you any other information that kind of might make sense. I'd also be happy to run these basic numbers for you based on a different income level. So if you make $80,000 or $120,000, or there's 2 incomes, both you and a partner, I'd be happy to give you a ballpark of what might work for you. If you found this valuable, please consider liking and subscribing. It genuinely helps and it means a lot to me. I appreciate you taking the time to watch this far, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Take care.